Ever asked yourself about the amazing things our minds can do? Well, here's a mind-blowing fact. Each day, thousands of thoughts rush through our heads, and get this, a whopping 80% of them tend to be negative. Most of the time, 8 out of 10 thoughts in our heads are negative, a bit like sad songs on repeat. Imagine it like having a DJ spinning melancholic tunes in our minds. But why does this happen? Well, our minds love telling stories, and they're like drama queens. So, when we think, it's not just a story, it's a blockbuster movie. So, our minds like to focus on the negative stuff. Imagine your brain as a storyteller, always making up tales, even about things that aren't real. This leads us to take things personally, thinking everything is about us. For example, your work buddy cancels a meeting suddenly. Your brain might jump to, oh, they must not like me. Or if a team member disagrees with you, you might think, they believe I'm not good enough. Even when your boss gives you some advice, your brain might say, she totally hates me. Yes, we do this a lot, make everything about us even when it's not. When we take things personally, it's like pressing a button that triggers a wave of not so great feelings. We end up feeling hurt, rejected, insulted, disappointed, and let down. If we just let these emotions hang around without doing anything about them, they can turn into a big, swirling storm of negativity in our minds. That storm messes with our mental health and makes us feel not so great about ourselves. Here's the tricky part. When we let these feelings take over, our thinking gets all foggy. It's like trying to see through a misty window. And guess what? We might start thinking of ourselves as victims. We blame others for how we feel, acting like they control our emotions. We forget that we have our own superpower, the ability to take charge of how we react to things. It's like handing over the steering wheel of our emotions to someone else, and that's not cool. So we want to avoid that downward spiral of negativity, clear away the mental fog, and take back control. How? Well, that's where our superhero moves come in, by not letting things get too personal in the first place. Now let's talk about why we have this habit of taking things personally. It turns out it's like a default setting in our brains, kind of like a pre-installed program. This setting often kicks in automatically, working behind the scenes without us even realizing it. It's just the way our brains are wired. So instead of diving into the personal drama, getting all defensive, and spending our precious time trying to prove we're innocent, we can actually use that time to solve real problems. Picture this: a clear-headed approach where we tackle issues without the extra baggage of feeling attacked or defensive. It's like putting on a pair of superhero glasses that help us see the situation for what it really is. By understanding this default setting in our brains, we can hit pause, take a step back, and choose not to go down the personal rabbit hole. Instead, we gear up to face challenges with a cool and collected mind. It's like upgrading our mental software to run on problem-solving mode rather than getting caught up in unnecessary emotional battles. Here are 5 guides to help you learn to stop taking things personally. Number 1, keep your ego in check. Now let's talk about taming the tricky beast called the ego. This ego thing is like the main troublemaker when it comes to taking things personally. When it gets involved, it's like the spotlight focuses only on us, and we forget about everyone else. Our ego has this talent for blowing things way out of proportion. It cranks up our desire to always be right, get recognized, prove others wrong, and justify why we feel a certain way. It's like a dark voice inside our heads, always on the lookout for trouble, ready to sound the alarm at the slightest hint of danger. This troublemaker can turn a simple disagreement into feeling disrespected, feedback into harsh criticism, saying no into feeling rejected, and being assertive into coming off as arrogant. It's like living in our version of reality, blocking out any alternative perspectives. So, the secret to not letting things get too personal? Kick that ego to the curb. When our ego takes a back seat, suddenly everything isn't just black and white. We start seeing the gray areas, allowing for more balanced perspectives. Next time someone throws a hurtful comment our way or does something that stirs up strong emotions, it's time for a superhero move. Pause, take a deep breath, and don't let those emotions cloud our thinking. Say no to extreme thinking and consciously switch on the superhero glasses. Instead of letting our minds default to the personal setting, let's consciously think about the situation. Ask yourself, is it really how I see it? Could my ego be messing with my feelings here? It's like giving the ego a reality check. Taking things personally? Time to tell our ego to take a seat, because we're about to see things from a whole new perspective. Number 2, communicate your feelings honestly. Our minds are often clouded by various biases that shape how we perceive the world, interpret events, and react to them. One such bias is the illusion of transparency, a sneaky culprit that keeps us stuck in our own world without acknowledging how others perceive it. This illusion tricks us into assuming that our inner thoughts, feelings, and emotions are crystal clear to everyone else. Believing that others can effortlessly grasp our emotions without explicit communication leads to confusion, misinterpretations, and communication breakdowns. The trap intensifies when we presume that others can read our minds, making us hesitant to speak up about our feelings. To break free from the cycle of taking things personally, let's introduce a game-changer: external feedback. Here's your toolkit to stop the personalization game. State how you feel clearly and explicitly, steering clear of judgment or blame. And stating how you feel clearly and explicitly involves using I statements to express your emotions without accusing or blaming others. For example, "I feel hurt when you cancel our plans without notice," is more effective than "You're so inconsiderate for canceling our plans." Express your feelings as observations rather than verdicts. Expressing your feelings as observations means describing the situation objectively, without jumping to conclusions or making assumptions. Instead of saying, "You never listen to me," you could say, "I've noticed that when I share my thoughts, you often get distracted by your phone." Dive into others' perspectives through open inquiries. Diving into others' perspectives through open inquiries involves asking questions to understand their point of view, such as, "Can you help me understand why you decided to do that?" Or, "What was your thought process behind that decision?" Set boundaries and hold others accountable for their actions. When we don't set clear boundaries, it allows others to unwittingly encroach on our peace of mind. We often expect people to just know what our limits are without voicing them. For example, when a friend cancels plans at the last minute, we get upset but don't express how it makes us feel disrespected. By bottling up those feelings, we let resentment build instead of reclaiming our inner peace. The empowered choice is to calmly state our boundaries. "I feel really frustrated when plans get canceled last minute. Could you please give me a heads up next time?" Similarly, when boundaries are crossed, we tend to avoid confrontation to keep the peace externally while allowing our inner peace to suffer. If a friend is repeatedly late, speak up with honesty and compassion. "When you're late, it makes me feel unimportant. Could we please work on being more respectful of each other's time?" Having these open conversations with self-respect and care for the relationship aligns your inner peace with your outer world. Speaking up and sharing your feelings isn't just about freeing yourself. It's a transformative process that helps you overcome biases, uncover truths, and redefine expectations. Liberating and enlightening, this practice not only strengthens communication, but also reshapes the dynamics of your relationships. Number 3, realize what you can't control and let go. There are times when the previous strategies may hit a roadblock, and none of them seem to be the perfect fit. There are instances when it's crystal clear that the situation was indeed directed at you with malicious intent, aiming to hurt, demean, or bring you distress. Even when it's unquestionably personal, clinging to that feeling does more harm than good. It intensifies the problem, fueling a desire to control everything, even aspects beyond your influence. This quest for control often leads to disappointment, frustration, and a sense of helplessness. In the wise words of Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic philosopher, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This simply means you can't control how others think and act. The only realm within your control is you. To liberate yourself from taking things personally, even in the face of deeply personal situations, adopt a 3-step approach. Identify what's within your control and what lies beyond it. Purposefully act on things within your control, steering your response with intention. Accept the outcome, whatever it may be, and gracefully move forward. By concentrating on elements within your control, you reclaim the power to choose your response. This shift enables you to navigate situations without letting others dictate how you should think, feel, or act. Number 4, try to understand about their intention or objective that they had in mind. Now let's dive into the art of considering the intentions of others. Picture this. Everyone around you lives in a different world with unique dreams and desires. It's like we're all playing different parts in our own movies. When someone does or says something that strikes a chord, it's essential to remember that their world isn't an exact replica of yours. Many factors influence their thoughts and actions, and most of the time it has nothing to do with you. The trouble begins when we assume a starring role in their story, judging from our biased viewpoint instead of making room for understanding and alternative perspectives. To break free from the personalization trap, it's crucial to hit the brakes on quick conclusions and strong opinions. Let's examine situations by exploring possibilities. What might be causing their behavior? Can you envision yourself or others acting similarly under different circumstances? Are there situational factors influencing their actions? What alternative explanations can you consider? Can you change your mind from negative to positive? If a person is observing, what would he say? Let's illustrate this with an example. Imagine seeking help from a teammate, only to face outright rejection without any consideration. Feeling hurt is natural, but taking it personally leads to attaching unjustified meanings like they're arrogant and disrespectful. The problem with taking things personally is that it shuts down communication and stifles collaboration. You might unconsciously decide to steer clear of working with them in the future. Instead, let's flip the script. Why might they turn down your request? Overloaded with work, dealing with a personal crisis, or perhaps they're just having a bad day. Reflect on a time when you said no to someone. What influenced your decision and behavior? Consider other possible explanations for their behavior. To break the personalization habit, challenge your default setting of assuming bad intent. Look at the situation or person through a more positive frame. It's like swapping judgment for understanding and opening up a world of improved relationships and collaboration. Number 5, build emotional resilience. And practice self-compassion and positive self-talk. Whenever Sabrina caught herself being self-critical after a mistake, she pictured her best friend and thought about how she would reassure them, with kindness and understanding, not harsh judgment. She spoke those compassionate words to herself instead. Cultivate a more objective perspective. Marcus remembered a time when he took his boss's blunt feedback too personally and got defensive. Now, when situations arose, he imagined himself hovering above the scene as an impartial observer evaluating intentions and impacts objectively. After venting about a delayed flight, Lisa's friend reminded her that ranting wouldn't make the plane take off any faster. Lisa realized she was wasting energy on something outside her control. She proceeded to take deep breaths and focused her mind to letting it go. Use coping techniques like deep breathing. When Max felt panic rising during an argument, he excused himself, went to another room, and used a mindfulness app to guide his breathing. As his heart rate slowed, the situation no longer felt so personalized or threatening. Allow yourself to process emotions healthily. Rather than bottling up her hurt feelings after a falling out with her sister, Grace met up with a friend to talk it through openly and get it off her chest in a healthy, productive way without lashing out. Building emotional resilience is an ongoing practice, but one that allows you to navigate life's challenges with grace and inner peace. By developing this vital skill, you free yourself from taking things personally and reclaim the power to choose your state of mind. The path to true freedom lies in releasing the tendency to take things personally and make them about you. By following these steps, you reclaim your power over your inner state and live from a place of unruffled calm and contentment. There you have it. Thanks, and see you next time.